Good evening and welcome to this evening's live stream presented by iRacing UK Discord community. Together, we are an enthusiastic and inclusive group of racers from across the UK who like to run social races, practice sessions, leagues, but most importantly, share our experiences and our passion for sim racing. I'm Nick Allen and I'm joined tonight by Chris Rowlands for the fifth round of the iRacing UK Formula 3 League, brought to you live from iRacing, the world's premier motorsport simulator. Now, Chris, we'd normally expect to see you out there, tearing up the top half of the grid, chasing after the likes of Lucia and Lamy. So I think our viewers will take it as quite a shock to hear you in the commentary box this evening.
Yeah, evening, Nick. Evening, everyone. I've inadvertently shown why sim sports are superior to real life sports by tearing a ligament in my knee playing football on Monday evening. If Matt hadn't stormed into such a commanding lead, I'd have been tempted to brave it out and race tonight. But Laubscher's done such a fantastic job up the front that it's allowed less gifted drivers such as myself to take a sensible rest. I know that the other Chris is also injured from a sim racing incident, so we're a few drivers down, but with a few other new names tonight. We've got a few challengers that we're desperate to get a win that have been here throughout, and they do have the pace to challenge him. So I'm going to throw two names into the bowl here: Will Mason and Jerome Lamy. For their sake, I hope I haven't given them the commentator's curse though. There should be some good action throughout the field. They're very closely bunched tonight, and hopefully we can keep up with it like we did last week in the Skiffy race at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. We've got Jerome Lamy and Will Mason who have been incredibly strong throughout this series so far. In the last race at Nürburgring, both of those guys made up podium places behind Matt Lucia. So absolutely, these guys are in for a shot at that top step this evening. However, he's not going to make it easy because Matt, with 160 points at the top of the table at the minute, he's dominating the championship with a win and a clean sheet in every race so far. He's closely followed by those exact two people that we mentioned there, Will Mason and Jerome Lamy. And then yourself in fourth, actually, in the standings, Chris. So, I don't. You're not going to be bolting on any points unless the audience give you some for commentary bonuses this evening, really.
I'll take any I can get from that, to be honest. Feel free. You could perhaps do it with your Amazon Prime subscriptions.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's a perfect pivot into a little moment where we just talk about what you can do to help us out here at the iRacing UK community. So all of these streams are run by volunteers, or the leagues are all run by volunteers out of their own pockets and time. So if you've got an Amazon Prime subscription, what we'd really like is if you would give us your free Twitch subscription that you get as part of Twitch Prime. Amazon Prime is a service that a lot of people are using these days, especially in an age where we're in lockdown, and it's a really great service that allows you to get that additional Twitch Prime subscription, which we'd really appreciate you use on the channel this evening if you want to support future streams for iRacing UK. We really enjoy bringing you this content, especially with the camera angles from trackcams22.com, which we've been blessed to be able to give you every view of the action. And speaking of action, we're bringing that action to you tonight from the fantastic Interlagos, where we'll also see the Skip Barber League visit in a week's time also. With any luck, the racing we get to see this week will be a taste of the action that those guys will be giving us in a few days' time. We've certainly seen a lot of emotion and drama at this circuit in real-world racing, with moments such as Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon's unfortunate contact that resulted in Alex losing his first ever podium place that he was in line to win. But of course, it's not all heartbreak here in Brazil, because in the very same race, Pierre Gasly took his very first P2 for Toro Rosso, aka now Alpha Tauri. So this track provides a lot of emotion and drama from every angle and every point, whether it be the Senna S's or the later stages, like for example the Pico or the Bico de Pato corner. So, Chris, I'm really looking forward to this. Hopefully, we'll be able to go on board with one of our drivers in a moment. We'll be able to take the audience through a lap of Interlagos in all its glory. Now, Chris, anybody here in particular that you think is in with a chance outside of those top three? I mean, we've got some new guys in this evening. So, by the looks of it, we've got. I saw three new names. Dan Mould, one of those ones that we've got.
I think we're actually going to join Dan for his lap here, so we can talk you through a lap through his eyes, hopefully. So as we approach the start-finish straight, we're going to approach the centre S's here. It's a deceptive braking point. You want to, just after this board here, yep, he's braking a little bit early, but you want to really abuse that first curve. Oh, he's missed his apex slightly, but you want to be hammer on immediately as you come through here, because this is another very long straight. Apologies to any of our Portuguese or Brazilian listeners. I'm not going to attempt to desecrate your language with any pronunciations tonight. It's not fair on you. Got another relatively heavy braking point into turn 4 here. This is probably the second best overtaking point on the circuit. You really want to abuse those curbs through here. There's so much time to be gained from carrying the extra speed as we come up here to turn 6 and 7, where you almost don't need to brake. You're just lifting off and dropping down a gear. Again, really maximise that curb usage. Oh, a little bit of a lock up here. We've taken a slightly wide, well, I say slightly, a very wide line through 8 and 9. That's going to be a lot of time cost for Dan here. As we can then approach up to 10 and then 11. You can take a lot of this curb, but in the race there is a risk associated with it. If you take too much curb, it can damage the floor of the car and lose you those vital few seconds of top speed. As we come up to Junção here, I've already broken my promise to not butcher Portuguese. Maximise that curb usage again, early on the throttle, because you've got a very long straight here as we come back up to the start-finish line. Another thing to look out for in the race is the pit entry here, because the racing line actually takes you halfway through the pit lane. So I do wonder if we're going to see any drivers who haven't practiced that pit entry possibly cause some trouble for those who have.
Thanks very much for that, Chris. That was a nice lap to run around with Dan Mould. As you said, a little bit wide there. That would have compromised that qualifying lap for Dan. But hopefully, when he gets down to the real deal later on in the race, he'll be able to put in laps that can contend with some of the front runners that we've got there at the top end of the grid already. Just to name a couple of those, there's Jerome Lamy, currently running in first place with the best time of 1:27.7 this evening so far. He's closely followed by Will Mason, and so far, no time at the top of the table from our championship reign supreme man, Matt Lubscher. So at the minute, still down at the bottom of the grid, not set a time. He's in the pits. We'll see a lap from him very shortly. Now, Chris, you said that you did not want to butcher any of the Portuguese language. I, however, have got no problems with doing that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a quiz here on the turn names, and let's see if you can translate the turn names of Interlagos into English. So the first one we're going to go with is probably actually, I think, probably one of the more difficult ones. So arquibancadas.
Oh, I'm going to guess there's something to do with banking there, that second half of the word. I mean, I have got the names up in front of me in Portuguese, so I can sort of try and guess from my very limited understanding of Portuguese. I know obrigado, and that's about it. I'm going to guess something about banking.
Arquibancadas is bleachers. Is that corner that you'll see the drivers? It's actually the section between 14 and 15, if you look at it on the map, and that is the run up to the final straight. So I'm going to give you another one now. That's Bico de Pato.
Oh, I've got absolutely no clue here. It's turn 11, so it's that sharp right-hander before you go into the Junção collection. I'll give you a clue. I'm not the best improviser. Please.
It's something of duck, or if you were to literally translate it.
Is that beak of duck then?
Duckbill. There you go. It's the duckbill. It's the duckbill corner, and that is turn number 11. That I believe that being the turn actually that we just talked about, that accident between Hamilton and Albon. That was actually the very corner where that occurred, I believe. So I'm going to give you one more before we go back to talking about our drivers, and that is Retta Aposta.
Oh dear, I'm going to be 0 for 3 here, I think. Is Retta straight, perhaps, I wonder? Because it is the straight between 3 and 4.
Ooh, you're warm.
Oh.
How about that? How about that second part, Chris?
Opposite straight, perhaps?
Bingo, it is the opposite straight. That is the straight that comes after turn 3 and the Senna S's. So the drivers of the will be going down the hill through the Senna S's before they reach that Retta Aposta. And I presume the Retta Aposta will be the point where we see some of those kind of slipstream overtakes, people going for dives into turn 4 and hopefully trying to take some place. As you said, one of the overtaking spots is going to be between turns 4 and 5 in Descida de Lago. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. Now, at the moment, it does look like Matt has not gone out and set a time. Are you surprised by that, Chris?
I wonder if it's an element of giving himself a challenge after 3 races where, while there have been people his pace, no one's also had the consistency that Matt's shown us, because he's finished every race a good 10 seconds up the road from his nearest challenger. So perhaps this is him just sort of saying to everyone, look, I've got a nice commanding lead here. Show me what you can do and I'll fight my way through the pack. Because this is a good track for overtaking, as long as you're not too impatient coming up through the stadium section in the middle, because those 2 long straights up to the center S's and then turn 4, you can get some big moves done there if you time it correctly.
Another one that's not gone out this evening so far in qualifying, Ben Cullen, one of the drivers in car number 16. We've seen some great performances from Ben in the past races. Ben in Watkins Glen, I believe, Ben did quite well, actually. He made it into 6th position after having started from 19th. So absolute monster performance from Ben at Watkins Glen, which was actually one of the races where we probably saw the most overtaking moves in any of the league races that we've seen so far, closely followed by the Skip Barber series, where again we saw an incredible amount of overtakes from all the drivers. Chris, we've got the runners on the screen right now. Would you like to take us through those?
I certainly can. So, on taking pole position for, I believe, the first time is Jerome Lamy, followed on the front row by Will Mason. And then the second row just behind them, we've got Lee Aberdeen and Gavin Petty. Those 4 are all very close together. P5 is one of our newcomers, Rudy Morer, who is alongside another one of our newcomers, Dan Mould. P7, we've got Edmund Webb, which I believe is probably a highest qualifying position for him. And following him on row 4, Duncan Roberts, who, again, I think that might be his highest qualifying position. P9 and P10, we've got James Cockram and Josh Wilson. And then following them outside the top 10, we've got Martin Devine, Marcus Hudson, Carl Cranswick, Sam Hooper, Joe McMullen, John Dobson, Mark Cadmore up in 17th, which I think he'll be very pleased with. Clive Davis in 18th, and then we've got the guys who didn't qualify. We've got Matt Lubscher, Ben Cullen, Paddy Bennett, and Nathan Willoughby rounding out those 22 drivers we've got today at Interlagos.
22 drivers in Formula 3 cars. This should be action that we have been waiting for all week as the guys now take up the grid and they get ready for the start of this race. We've got plenty of action planned here for you as we go and look at some fantastic shots here from Track Cams 22 of the cars on the grid in front of us. We're currently looking here at Will Mason as we look now down the middle of the grid. Make sure you get all of your questions into the Twitch chat. We'll be looking forward to reading those out on stream when we get a moment in between some of the action that we're expecting here tonight. And also, if you fancy a look at the translation game, you can try and tell us what some of the other corner names mean. So let's go with Mergulo. See if you can tell us what that is. We look forward to your guesses in the chat.
There will be no points if you can translate S's Docena.
Yeah, no points for that one. That's I think that one's given away by the name enough. As the lights are now ready to go out, as we've got 3 lights, 4 and 5. We're going green for the 5th round of the Formula 3 racing here at iRacing UK, and it looks to me like Lamy's got a great start here. He's managed to get ahead, and oh, look at that. Jerome Lamy has actually managed to put it nice and ahead of all of the other guys there on the grid. He's got a commanding lead ahead of Mason. It sounds like Edmund Webb has crashed and he's dropping down the pack. Also Aberdeen dropping down the pack a little bit there. Also had an accident by the looks of it. So Lamy now under threat from Mason as they head down into the 4th and 5th turns here. Look at this. Mason is really going to try and hang on to the back here of Lamy and not let him get too much distance. We've got a couple of cars here. They're going to be going side by side. But looks at that's Dan Mould and Rudy. Look at these guys absolutely side by side, and they've managed to get the move done there. That's fantastic work there from Dan Mould, who's managed to get it. And oh, Dan Mould a spin. That might have been some contact that we had there. Dan Mould is now dropping down the field. That's incredible shame here for Dan Mould, one of the newcomers to the league and his first appearance here on iRacing UK in the Formula 3. So that is a real shame. It looks like he's managed to get it back on the track and he's kept it in one piece. That is a real shame for him. We're going to go over to the Edmund Webb accident now that happened on the start of the race. Oh, they got stuck there in the S's, getting caught up there. Oh, look at that. There was loads of car damage further at the S's, but Edmund actually at the bottom there managed to spin it by the looks of it of his own accord. Walk to that. There we go. Over the grass he goes. It looks like he's made it. He's been doing his grass cutting impression there. That's a Christian Horner apprenticeship. Didn't he start cutting grass once upon a time?
I believe he did. I think that was very kind on the exit from Edmund, making sure that if he's going to crash out, he's
That
not
was
going to take anyone else with him, which
Lee
I think
Aberdeen.
other drivers will be grateful for.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
unfortunately, Lee Aberdeen got very stuck in the middle there, which did result in a couple of other drivers taking a spot of damage. Oh, we've got Hooper in the pit lane also at the moment. Well, we're going to go all the way back to the front of the pack where Will Mason has managed to get it past Jerome Lamy, and Will Mason now ahead in this race in P1. Let's see if Will Mason can hold it together here. It looks to me like Jerome Lamy incredibly close behind, and he's not going to be wanting to give up that top spot too easily if he can help it. He's worked really hard to be here, and he's here on merit, just like he is every week. Look at that. He's a really interesting line there, just slightly different to Will Mason. And now he's going to try and hold on to the back of him, but he's got Gavin Petty having a look on the outside there. Gavin Petty fancies a little go, I think, at the back of Jerome Lamy. Now, Jerome under threat here, doesn't want to lose too much time to Gavin. He wants to be able to try and stay close in behind Will, because as soon as Will gets away, it's going to be game over. And Cranswick, look at that. It's a replay from Cranswick, taking a bit of a tap there, a bit of contact at the rear of his car, and then he's brought it back onto the track. Looks like he's going to come on nice and safely there. Let's see if we can get another view of that maybe in a moment. But look at this. We've got a move here coming from Gavin Petty. He's on the outside of Jerome Lamy, looking there at the back of Will Mason. These guys are going to be incredibly close as Jerome goes down the inside, looking to defend here from Gavin Petty. And at the moment, it looks like Gavin can't quite get that move done, but it's a long race as we're going to ride here on the rear wing of Will Mason. Look at that. So we get to have a rear view of the battle here between Gavin Petty as he's having a little look up the inside of Lamy every time there. Really keen to get past. He's going to squeeze that F3 car in any gap that he can, as long as it gets him that P2. The question is, will Petty be able to bring the fight to Will Mason when he gets past Jerome, if he gets past Jerome, Chris?
Yeah, and that was just interesting on the previous lap. Mason was very late on the apex into turn 8, but the knock-on effect of that actually brought Petty into contention with Lamy. By the time they got to Juncal, Mason had a good half a second on the both of them. So this is all the trouble for the three of them right now. They know they're very evenly matched on terms of pay. They don't want to take each other out with a silly move, so it might maybe just sensible to take stock in third place as Gavin Petty is right now. See where your competitors are a bit weaker, and then later in the race you can make that move, because I don't think any of these three would be able to pull out a big gap, except for the one they've pulled out on the rest of the competitors, with Rudy Morer in fourth place about 5 seconds behind.
Now, we need to just talk about somebody that was at the back of the pack at the start of this race, and that is Matt Lubscher, the man who we've talked about a lot. Oh, actually, we know we're going to ignore Matt Lubscher for a minute, because look at this. This is Jerome Lamy looking for a move there on Will Mason. He's just making sure that Will knows that he's there, and Jerome looking really fighty, as it looks to me like Petty's now dropping back a little bit, and now Jerome is going to be in a premium position here to bring the fight right up to Will Mason as they're going side by side. They're actually along each other now. It looks to me like Jerome's going to get the move done, and he's on the inside as they head into the Cedar de Lago. That is a brilliant move from Jerome Lamy, but Will Mason's not going to let it go. He's still on the inside there, but Jerome now has the inside line into the next set of corners, which to me looks like he's got the move done and defended it well. Fantastic work from Jerome there, just the stuff that we like to see from him in the races. He's had some shaky starts and some unfortunate pit stops in previous races. I'm hoping that this is the day that we get to see him on the top step of the podium at last.
Yeah, I think his raw pace has been very good, so he'll be desperate to get that first win. I think we're going to go to a replay here of Mark Hudson with an overtake into the centre S as we go, 3 wide nearly. Again, we're seeing some nice, fair, respectful driving all throughout the field here today. That first lap incident, it's an inevitability in racing, I think. These guys are desperate to get going and the tyres are cold. But we've seen, since then, nice, clean overtakes. The problem with that overtake into the centre S is that you do compromise your drive through here into turn 4. As we see car number 4 of John Dobson ahead of the other two of Marcus Hudson and Paddy Bennett, I believe. All still driving, and we've got Jerome Lamy still in the lead.
Yeah, Jerome now looking like he's going to pull a little bit of a gap here. We're actually going to go over to Josh Wilson, because Josh Wilson is following a pack of cars here in the battle for 10th position. There's 4 of them here, and a mistake from one could mean glory for the rest. So as they go into the centre S's now, we'll see who comes out on top. But we've also got John Dobson in the mix here, and also the likes of Mark Hudson and Patrick Bennett as well. So watching these guys should be an absolute pleasure. And that looks to, there's another car getting involved there. This is going to be a 5-car battle, possibly even 6, if that car of Martin Devine at the back there, number 55, manages to catch up to the pack here and get involved in this battle. We've got guys that are running really wide there. There's car number 4 running wide, and Wilson managing to slip it through though. Wilson looking incredibly strong. And now Wilson on the outside. Oh, look at this. This is fantastic racing from these guys. Nathan Willoughby, we're now having a little look at. Nathan, again, another one of the newcomers to this round of Formula 3 League. He's going to be chasing Wilson now and looking for a move possibly as they head up into the final straight. Oh, no, sorry, not quite the final straight. They've got a couple of corners yet, but he's staying close enough that he's definitely going to be ready for it. Will Mason's about to get overtaken by Gavin Petty by the looks of it as they head into the S's. And on the inside, Gavin Petty, nice tidy move. Mason actually just seems to let it kind of take its course there and not put up too much of a fight. But of course, as you said, the overtake can compromise the speed into this next section of the circuit. Will Mason having a little look there, but it looks to me like Gavin Petty is trying to just keep it nice and close in behind Jerome Lamy, follow that line and make the most of the slipstream. Back to the centre S as we go for another little battle here, again between Mark Hudson and Josh Wilson. We've also got Duncan Roberts in the mix and Patrick Bennett. Look at that. Patrick Bennett just managed to get past Mark Hudson. Fantastic move there. Absolutely great work from one of the iRacing UK League admins there. Oh, and then we've got Wilson looking at the inside as they go into the Lago. Wilson also now making a stake for, trying to stake his claim to a position on the grid there. That's great racing from these guys. Again, a 4-way battle that we were really looking forward to see on Interlagos, and these drivers tonight are really, really giving it to us. Just looking through some of the comments, Mouse Nightshirt, will be interested to see how Lauscher gets through the field. Yeah, it absolutely will be, but Lucius, the least of you worries when you've got action like this on the screen from the likes of Wilson, Bennett and Hudson and Willoughby. Now Hudson here, who we're riding with, really trying to defend quite hard from Willoughby. Willoughby looking quite strong in this race so far. Nathan is really staying quite close to this pack, and he's going to be in for a contention of some points here. If there's an accident further up the field, we've seen a lot of action whereby these guys get too close, they go wheel to wheel, or they give each other loads of room throughout the race, and then we see chaos at the later stages after the pit stops, or even in the pit stops in some cases, Chris. Down into the S's they go, and Wilson makes an absolutely flawless move there, and he's going to make his way now out of the S's and then onto the Retta Aposta. Really great to see the action that we've had so far.
Yeah, Wilson and Bennett have got a little bit of a gap there, but they'll be desperate to get that gap going forward to Hudson, because that is 6 cars they got behind them. You don't want to get embroiled into a battle there, because you want to be able to work with that driver to get away from the rest of the pack. So let's see what they do. I think Paddy really wants to get back past Josh Wilson here.
Yeah, Paddy's he's looking for a move there. I think, like you said, if they're smart about this, they'll follow each other around, they'll drag each other around, and they'll try and make their way up to the other packs. But it actually looks to me like Paddy's going to be under a bit of threat there. Or maybe not. He's managed to hold on to the position, but then 2 cars behind him looking incredibly racy. Every mistake that Paddy makes trying to get round Wilson is going to cost him time against the guys behind the likes of Hudson and Willoughby, who are just waiting for their opportunity. Now, Matt Lucia still running in 6th position at the minute, up 13 places. He's got James Cockram ahead of him. We're going to go over to Matt Lucia now, and look at him. He's following the fight ahead of him between Rudy and James. Those guys are going to be fighting it out for 4th and 5th place, and Matt can quite comfortably just cruise up to the back of that battle. He can use all that pace that he's got, that we know he's got, and make his way into a commanding points finish if he wants to. His best lap on circuit so far, a 129.1 by the looks of it. So these guys, actually the last laps that a lot of them are running are actually 127s. Jerome Lamy 127, Gavin Petty 127.8. Those guys they're only split by 100th of a second on their last lap, and then the likes of Will Mason behind them also under 130 in that 128 time area. So brilliant stuff so far, some great laps, and we're going to see Willoughby now, who looks like he's managed to get it past Marcus Hudson, who isn't going to let him keep that place for long if he has his way. But Nathan, nice clean lines there as he makes his way through the middle sector into the final few corners of this lap. Lee Aberdeen down in 22nd at the minute. The one person that I think has probably had the roughest time so far. He's actually only done 2 laps, I believe. He may have had to be in for, he's out of this race now. So that's unfortunate for Lee Aberdeen, who'd been really strong in other rounds that we've seen him. Gavin Petty still trying to chase up Jerome Laney. Unfortunately, he's dropped back. Jerome has now managed to open that gap up a little bit, and Will Mason is having a look at Will Petty. This is going to be the closest fight that we probably see on track outside of that battle for 9th place that we were watching earlier. Will Mason, to me, looking very strong in the initial phases, but dropping back a couple of places, which is not what he's going to want. Well, dropping back 1 place in this case, which he's not going to be happy about. Do you think that Will's got a chance of bringing it back to the front here, Chris?
I certainly think you do. The undercut in F3 doesn't really work in the sense that you can fuel save and then save time because the guys aren't fueling your car for quite as long, because it only takes about 5 seconds to fuel the car. However, it can still, just in the nature of these strategies, work. If you just sit behind, so long as Gavin doesn't lose too much time to Jerome, you can still maybe come in a lap or 2 earlier, really hammer it out of that pit exit. It's quite a long pit exit here. If you've practiced that, you can make a second or 2 off someone who hasn't, for example. We've seen Jerome have some bad luck with pits this series, so I wouldn't say any of these top 3 are out of it yet. But if you're Will Mason, you're begging Gavin to keep up with Jerome, and if you're Jerome, you're begging Gavin and Will to fight with each other. But at the moment, we are seeing the 3 of them behaving, I think, although Jerome, unless there's an issue with the timing, something might have happened. Jerome appears to have dropped off the radar, so we'll have to see what's happened to him, because at the moment it's just Gavin and Will at the front here, and now this has become a battle for the lead. So Matt Lubscher appears to have pitted, so we'll stay here with Will and Gavin at the front. The 2 of them being nice and sensible through the middle section of the stadium. They might have a nice big 12-second gap here, but if they start fighting, all it takes is one of Marais or James Cochrane. Any one of them could still win this race if it just comes down to a small contact between these 2. So we'll have to see what happens here. Such a shame for Jerome Lamy as well, because he set the fastest lap of the race so far with a mid 1:27.6.
Yeah, absolutely. We are watching these guys now, Petty and Mason, as they head over the start fence. Oh, we've got a little bit of an accident there from Mark Hudson. Looks like he's had a bit of an off track. He's going to be dropping down there. John Dobson's managed to get past it, and so has Patrick Bennett. Let's see what happened to him here in that Max View car number 43. Oh, just off track. Nothing too drastic. He's just got a little bit too deep and not quite made his braking point. That's a shame after a really great fight that we've seen from him between a lot of the other guys in the mid-pack. Oh, and there's another car off. That's Dan Mould, another one of the runners who was looking really strong earlier on. Dan Mould, an unfortunate incident from him that's now set him back all the way to 13th place, I believe, on the grid. Shame from Dan Mould, but a great showing from him so far in his first appearance. And there's Ben Cullen now heading up into 13th place. Ben Cullen is going to be under threat from Dan Mould as they head into the centre S's. Is Dan going to want to check that position back? He's going to give it a go. Look at that on the inside. He's not quite there though. And Ben Cullen having to be quite careful and give a bit of room there for Dan Mould, who's keen to get that car back past and up the grid. Ben Cullen, one of the guys that we've seen make up some places in previous races. Some great performances from Ben in the past. It looks to me like Marcus Hudson and John Dobson might be battling it out a little bit further in the field, but we've still got only a less than a second gap between Petty and Mason at the front. We're going to go over here still with Ben Cullen. We're going to keep riding with Ben because he's really pushing quite hard. He's going to get past the car there of I'm not sure who that is we've just gone past. He's just managed to get past Dave Devine, Martin Devine, that he's just managed to get past there. And now Martin's staying well out of the way of this fight. as Ben Cullen continues to be chased down by Dan Moll. Ben lapping last time round at a 1:28.3, and Dan very slightly quicker, 400ths of a second quicker at a 1:28.30. So it looks to me like Dan is going to be the one to watch here for a manoeuvre on Ben at some point in the next couple of laps. We're going to go over to John Dobson now. So John Dobson is in a battle with Mark Hudson behind him. Very, very close they are here as they go into the centre. S's fantastic driving here from these guys. This is some great camera angles we've also got here of the centre. S is brought to you by TrackCams22.com, bringing you all the action from all the angles. They're on Resto Aposta now, heading down, looking for a move as they go down towards Decina del Lago. This is a really interesting section of the track, and I don't think we've seen as much action here yet as I'd expected to. I figured that would be a fantastic overtaking opportunity for a lot of the guys tonight, Chris.
Yeah, I think most drivers have opted to take their moves into the centre S's and then have mostly been able to defend them through into turn 4. I mean, we saw earlier with Patrick Bennett and Josh Wilson nearly coming together when Paddy defended the line but decided to take the racing line towards the end. Josh just tucked his car on the inside, but I think realised discretion was the better part of valour. Didn't complete the move because there were 5 cars right behind the 2 of them. You don't want to compromise your exit speed that much.
Okie dokie. Right, so we're going to have a little look here at the front of the pack. So we've still got Gavin Petty and Will Mason fighting it out at the front here. They do appear to have a back marker ahead of them coming up. I think that's going to be Clive Davis, if I've just seen the car number correctly, the 00 of Clive Davis. So let's see how much of an issue he's going to be for Gavin Petty and Will Mason as they come round the middle sector of the lap at the moment. They're going to be heading up towards Bico de Pato, turn 11, before they head down into Mergulo, the dive that is turn 12, and then Junkao. Looks like Clive still has not quite seen those blue flags, but he's just had a little lock up there, but that's put him wide, and he's going to allow these guys to just slip past carefully, and Clive's going to be well out the way of this fight. Gavin Petty, looking like the stronger driver at the minute, is growing that gap a little bit, albeit only 6/10. It's not going to be enough to keep Mason behind, with the slipstream effect that he's going to be able to get on the straights around, I say the straights, the long bendy straight, if you like, that is the final section of this lap. And they really do run as far over that pit lane as they can get away with, don't they, Chris? I mean, I don't know how much time that's worth in your experience.
It's less than a tenth, but it adds up over 30 laps. If you do that every lap for 30 laps, you're looking at, it's not 3 seconds, but it's certainly better than not taking it that narrow. What it also does is it prevents the person you're racing with from getting an early move in as you're going along to the front straight, because obviously if you leave that door open and the driver's right behind you, they could take that.
So Chris, it looks like you've got a bit of a fan in the commentary in the Twitch chat this evening. Mouse Night Shirt says, nice to see Chris in the comments. Another question here from 306 Rally. How tricky are these to get a hang of?
Well, speaking from a sort of, I'm not a GT driver by trade, I'm a Formula driver. I think of the Formula cars, it's the nicest balance of power and drivability. You can really throw these cars around once the tyres are warmed up. Maybe not the quickest way to get them round, but compare it to, say, for example, the more powerful cars on the service, like the F1. You really have to be careful putting the power down. And while that's true in every car, you can floor it a bit easier in these ones. I would say Interlagos is maybe a bit trickier than some of the tracks because you've got some quite technical braking points. For example, into turn 4, not that heavy of a braking zone. I'm going
to have to interrupt you here because it looks like John Dobson's just been overtaken by Ben Cullen on circuit there on screen. So Ben Cullen appears to have just managed to get past John Dobson. That was a brilliant move we just saw there, nice and tidy. We're going to go over to Gavin Petty though, because Gavin Petty now under threat from Will Mason at the moment, so only 2/10 in it now, and this is the moment where there's an absolute move to be made here. Is Will Mason going to have a little look on the inside? He is, and look at that, side by side as they go into Decina del Lago. I don't think that he's quite going to get it done here. No, he's not. It looks to me like Gavin Petty managed to keep it ahead. He's got the pace, and he's going to cover that inside line and go defensive. That could obviously impact his speed on the exit here, unless he's being clever about this and he knows that Will Mason's also had to compromise compromise his speed, but I don't think that's the case because look how close Will Mason is, right onto the gearbox there, having a look through the rear wing of Gavin Petty. Less than 3/10 now. Coming up to the next straight, I imagine that these guys are going to be incredibly close unless one of them makes a mistake in this next section of corners. Then round Bico de Pato as they go into Maguglia, and then finally the run up to Juncal before they have a long run and an overtaking opportunity will open itself up for Will Mason. Do you think the move could be done into the S's here? Let's have a little look, Chris.
They're certainly close enough, aren't they? But if I was one of these two, I'd start thinking about the pit stop as we've reached the halfway point, and you could just take your opponent by surprise by just taking that slightly early pit stop and forcing them to make a decision. We see them go for the move here, Will Mason. I think he's backed out a little bit there just to let him know he's there.
Yeah, or not quite being able to get it done. That's going to compromise his speed there as they head out of the S's, and he's going to have to try and claim that back in the straight. Now, Josh Wilson is putting some pressure here on Nathan Willoughby. 3/10 between these guys, and Nathan looking like he's having really inside line. We're actually going to go back to Will Mason and Petty because Mason's going to make it happen on the inside. He's actually got the move done. Not where we thought he would. He was having a little look down there on the Retta Aposto in the last corner and the last lap, but he's managed to get it done on the entry of turn 4, and now he's managed to keep it comfortably ahead of Petty, and that is the new leader for the race. Will Mason, fantastic move and great to see him at the front there. Gavin Petty probably just going to sit behind him now, do you think, Chris, and wait for that pit stop opportunity? Maybe there's an undercut to be made here.
Yeah, the other advantage of what Will's just done there is you've got the whole stadium section where overtaking's not that easy. Is he going to push as hard as he can to try and get away and get out of that draft zone? But with 4/10 between them as they come through Juncal, don't think he's been able to do that. So we're going to see another move coming through the centre S's.
Looks like we've got Dan Mould out the race now as well. Unfortunately from Dan, we did see an accident from him earlier. I'm not sure particularly what has had him out of this race, but we're actually going to go over to Mr. Lubscher. So this is Matt we've been riding online with now. He's made his way up the grid this evening, all the way up to 6th actually earlier before he took that early pit stop. Incredibly early actually, considering. Oh, that's Patrick Bennett off the track in the background there that you can see, just picking up a bit of grass clip in there. We're going to go and hang on here with Matt as he rounds out the final section of the lap. Back over to Will Mason in P1. Will Mason looking incredibly strong at the front here. He's still being followed closely by Gavin Petty. Gavin not looking to give up just yet. He's holding on to that slipstream. Behind those guys in P3 is going to be Rudy. Now he's got quite the gap behind him, so I don't think this is going to be anything that Gavin and Will are going to be too worried about. The only instance where these guys really need to be worried now is either an accident or a penalty, really, isn't there? I'd say, Chris. I don't know that it's going to be anything. Oh, a little bit of a lockup from Mason there. Is that going to help Petty? I think it is. Petty's looking a bit closer now than he was in the preceding corners as they led up to that. How much does a lockup cost you here, Chris?
It can really cost you, and that's probably one of the worst places to do it because it's brought Gavin Petty right onto the back of Will Mason onto the main straight here. Are we going to see another move because it's less than 2/10 between them? I
think so. This is going to be a right up and close and personal for these guys. It looks like Petty looking for the outside there as Will Mason going to move to the inside to cover that inside line on the left there, and he's managed to keep it ahead nice and comfortably, albeit Gavin Petty in so tight behind him, and he's going to have another opportunity. What he's done here is he's put Mason under a lot of pressure here because he knows now that he can repeat the move that Mason made on him in the last few laps. All the difference here being that Mason covering the inside line heavily, really defending quite aggressively and making sure that Petty can't just slip that Formula 3 car up the inside of the corner.
There's been good race sense here from the two of them because while they can fight nice and hard because they've got that 16.5 second gap back to Rudy Moreira, they still don't want to take each other out of the race. There's still 13 laps to go. So there's no need to kill each other. They've still got to get it to the end of the race, although Rudy will of course be hoping that the two of them do because that will be a very nice debut for him.
Willoughby in the pits at the moment. Willoughby's on the pit exit, so he's going to be coming out after his mandatory pit stop. I expect we're going to see a lot of the guys now starting to dive into the pit lane, although you'll never guess when they're going to do it because they cut so much of the pit lane entry. So your guess is as good as mine, Twitch chat. You let me know when you think these guys are going to come in for that all-important motion stop and try and make that undercut or overtuck overcut happen. So looking at Ben Cullen, he's actually done his stop already, and he's looking like one of the strongest.
I think that might have been for damage on lap 1. I think he was involved in some of the lap 1 incidents because it was possibly just his fast repair looking at the time he was in the pits for on lap 1. So he might still have to make another stop.
Ah, I see. So he was one of the people that was caught up in the early incidents, possibly with the likes of Lee Aberdeen and some of those we saw getting stuck in the middle of the centre S's. And as Petty continues to put Mason under bags and bags of pressure. Mason doing incredibly well to hold it together at the moment, though. Only one little lockup that we've seen from him so far. Hopefully we've not cursed him there by commending his efforts at the front of the pack so far. This is the closest fight that we've got on track at the moment. Edmund Webb coming out of the pits at the moment. He has been in for his mandatory stop now on lap 18, looking like he will now have to try and drag his way up the field and make some further places. We're going to have a little look here, Edmund, as he just comes out of the pits, not getting in anyone's way there by the looks of it. He's come out there in P8, and he's got Ben Cullen ahead of him, so there's every chance that he's going to be able to get up to the back of Ben Cullen and give him some trouble in the second half of this race. We're going to go back over to Mason and Petty, though, because they are really, really close as they go onto that final pit straight. Neither of them have dived in, and Petty looking for that outside line again. Will Mason trying to defend the inside. Looks to me like Petty was just a little bit further ahead, possibly, but he's let off, and he's let Will Mason take that inside line and just slip down nice and comfortably. But this is not over yet, because we're back here in the position we were only a lap ago, with Petty looking up the outside here. Retta Aposta, is he going to be able to do it around the outside of Decino Didago? He's staying close, he's staying really close, but that's not going to be enough on this occasion. He hasn't even managed to keep it on the inside for the next section of corners. So Will Mason still, oh, he's going to go for an inside dive here. It's a very big dive if it is, but not quite. They're going to stay in position for the moment with Will Mason keeping that P1. No silly mistakes, please, gents. We want to see a nice clean race, but we want to see an exciting one. So maybe try an undercut rather than a dive. Let's see what happens.
I don't think you want to be taking a move into this section unless it's the last lap or two, because there's too much risk to be worth it, especially because they're just going to keep on each other's tails with the draft on the main straight anyway.
Willoughby has had an accident. We're going to go to a replay of that now. Let's see what happened to Mr. Willoughby. He's come out of the pits and possibly on a slightly heavier fuel load. Oh, yeah, he's just taken it off track there and then reset the car immediately back to the pits, actually, interestingly. So there was no damage there. Maybe he's made a mistake on the fueling and not been able to finish it off. And there's Gavin Petty on the inside of Will Mason, a move that we've been waiting to see happen for the last few laps, and he's done it into the first corner, down the centre S's. He's got a nice lead now ahead of Mason. I say a nice lead, it's no nicer than the lead that Mason had ahead of him, and there's going to be another move. Mason likes it down here. He's done it once. Can he do it a second time? And he's done it. Look, he's down on the inside. He's managed to get that position back in P1 goes Will Mason, but they're still right next to each other, and I don't think Petty's going to be giving this up anytime soon, because he's got the better line here. He's got the defending line into the middle sector as they head now into Horseshoe and then to Vico de Pato of turn 11. Great work from Mason and Petty here. Some great racing we've seen from both of these guys at the front. Shame that Jerome Lamy couldn't be involved in this scrap. Unfortunately, he is out of this race. Appears to have been some form of disconnect issue. Real shame there. So we're getting close to a critical point now. Both of these guys must be due a pit stop. There's no way they can keep teasing each other with who's going to go in first and who's going to do the undercut, who's going to try the overcut. They might possibly both dive in at the same time, which would be a real dramatic moment. It looked like Will Mason was just tickling the idea there of dropping in and having a little go in the pits, and there he goes down the first corner. He's managed to get that move done again. They're going to keep trading places, I expect, now as we come into the final stages of this race, really just pushing each other to the limit all the way through these laps. This has been fantastic to watch, and Petty is not ready for it to be over yet. Will Mason trying to cover that inside line. That he knows that's where he wants to be, and he's definitely been more comfortable there on the inside throughout this race, whether it be through defending or through overtaking. But Petty is not interested in letting him go. With only a tenth between them, he's in for a big dive here, and he's made it happen. Brilliant work from Petty there. It's brave, it's bold, but it's effective. He's got the job done. Back in P1 for Petty. We really can't leave these guys. We have got a fight behind with Ben Cullen and Mr. Wilson as well there into turn 1. Cullen is looking very strong. He's managed to keep it ahead of Wilson there into the S's. It's a great move from Ben Cullen. We're going to go to Lucia behind, who is also looking for a move on Edmund Webb. Looks like he got a little bit stuck there, had to try and dive out round the side of him, and I think Matt Lucia has got every chance of getting it done here as they go down Resta Aposta into the Tillalager, the 4th and 5th corners. Then around the outside, he's trying that move. He's going to keep it side by side, but that does mean that he's going to have to be fighting Edmund Webb all the way until he gets the preferred line here on the inside of turn number 6. Great work there from Lucia so far. He's not quite got it done though, has he? Edmund Webb really still putting up a fight here. Doesn't want to give Matt that position easily, and Matt's going for every point he can get to try and solidify his position as the winner of this championship. So he's going to have to fight hard for it, but finally he's managed to get it done. And his next target on track is going to be car 91 of Josh Wilson up the road. Now, Gavin Petty still ahead of Mr. Mason. 8 laps to go, Chris. There's no way that they can keep going for much longer.
Well, I think looking at, so we can see on the timing tower what laps everyone's taken their pit stops as. I believe Petty and Mason are possibly going to have to come in this lap, surely, because you see Matt Lauser, lap 9, I think he fueled as little as he thought he could get away with and is doing a full stint now. So Edmund Webb will be very pleased it took Lauser as long as it did to get past him. And I think it was a good 2 laps he was behind him there. And when you consider that's the championship leader you've kept behind you for that long on a draft-heavy track, shows you, there's talent through all the way through this grid. Surely Petty and Mason are going to come into the pits here at the same time, because a 23rd lap on 1 tank of fuel is a really big ask.
Yeah, must be running on fumes now, really light in those cars, I expect. And the question is, will this give Matt Lucia a chance of making his way right up to the top? And there we go. Oh, Mason staying out. He's going to go for another lap if he can here, but he has got traffic ahead by the looks of it on the circuit. There's position number 13. That's Sam Hooper possibly ahead of him, or one of the other back markers by the looks of it. So he is going to have to come up to some traffic. I think that's actually Hudson, possibly. Yeah, it's Hudson that we've got ahead there of Will Mason. So Will want to try and get past him rather than having to put up with trying to go around him. Though the chances are that he won't catch him by the end of this lap, and he's going to have to dive into the pits anyway. So the best he can hope for here is going to pick up a little bit of draft off the back of the car ahead of him. We've also got James Cockram, who's headed into the pit lane, and Rudy is also who's currently P3, has just come out of the pit exit, I believe, as well. Willoughby out of this race. We saw Willoughby go off track. Whether that was a fueling issue, I'm not sure. He is now out of this race. Also, Wilson has dived into the pits. All of these guys really leaving it right to the last minute, all the way to the end, really pushing it as fine as they can to try and get an advantage in this race. Now, I will be interested to see where Mason comes out when he eventually comes in for his pit stop. He must be coming in on this lap, Chris.
Yeah, he surely is. Gavin Petty was stopped for a total of 5 seconds. The only one who's gone substantially quicker than that in the pits is Duncan Roberts, so he'll owe his pit crew a big raise. As yes, Will Mason has come into pit. Gavin Petty here, he is coming up the main straight. He's still yet to get onto the full bit of the main straight. We're going to have a drag race possibly as we come out onto the back straight up to turn 4. That could be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to this. Let's see when Mr. Mason is going to come out as we watch Gavin Petty now coming into the centre S's, and we're gonna see Mason coming out the pit lane now, and Mason now managing to keep it ahead of Petty by 1.3 seconds. So that's a fantastic stop or a fantastic lap, whichever way you look at it, from Mr. Mason. Big bow, big round of applause there for Mr. Mason. It's a fantastic bit of work there. I wonder if Gavin Petty got caught up by anybody else on track on his outlap, or possibly just had a scrappy outlap. We'll perhaps get to see any moments from Petty that stopped him. But it looks to me like he's dropping back even further now, 1.4. He's just managed to get past that back marker. So now Gavin's got all the work to do in the last few laps to try and bring that gap back down and bring the fight back up to Will Mason, who's now got a 1.6 second lead, which is the most I think he's had in this entire race. So brilliant work from Will Mason. And we've got Ben Cullen in 4th at the moment. I wonder if Ben is going to be able to make it to the end on the fuel that he's got, because I believe he actually pitted on lap 1. So I don't think he's going to be one that we see it's staying in that P4, which means that Luce is probably going to bring it into P4 for the finish of this race.
Yeah, and only 4 seconds behind Rudy Moreira as well, so we could potentially see Lucia on the podium still if he can really push it, although Rudy just has to take it nice and easy and not panic, and he should be okay because we have only got 5 laps to go now.
Just heading over to the Twitch chat, we're just going to have a little look here at a few of your comments. They're going to be swapping back and forth all race with the slipstream here. That comes from Mouse Nightshirt. IRBKNL. Gavin is going to have to come up with something if Will keeps covering off the inside through turns 1 and 4. Yeah, absolutely. Will was very defensive, and he proved to us just the skill and the caliber of driver that he is by putting a really hard defence on Gavin Petty every time that he made a look in for a move. Gavin wasn't quite able to put the same defence in on all the points where Will was comfortable making overtakes. So yeah, really, really great racing. We're currently riding with Matt Lucia at the minute. Matt running in 4th has a real solid chance to finish off his championship strong here with another podium finish. I don't know that that's possibly going to happen this evening. I think he has to come at least 3rd this evening to win the championship overall. What we can do actually,
Will in 1st as well. That's exactly who he doesn't want to see there, because Will is 2nd in the championship, the only one who can really challenge him now.
Yeah, so there you go. Just to bring that to your attention for the Twitch chat, you got Matt Lucia at the top there, 160 points. So Will Mason, the only person that could possibly dethrone him this evening on that chance of winning the championship outright, basically, for Matt Lucia. So great to see the results there on screen. We're going to go back to the action, of which there isn't actually a vast amount right this moment on screen. So the gaps on between these guys are starting to open up a little bit. We're going to go over to Clive Davis here, a little replay of Clive Davis. Just watching him now as he comes around the final sector, and there he goes, a little spin there from Clive, just the back end managing to get away from him. Is that the sort of thing that's easy to do in that section of the track, Chris?
So easily done. I've done it plenty of times. It's one of the reasons why it's perhaps a good week for me to have injured myself, so I can't embarrass myself live on Twitch, because you're so desperate to get that power down coming out of Juncal. But if you do it a little bit too early, you do exactly what Clive did there. It doesn't matter how good you are, it's so easily done.
Only 4 laps to go, and we're just sort of seeing the tail end of this. We're going to go over to a couple of replays now of other action that we're seeing. Here's Martin Devine looking like he was just trying to get around car number 13 there, and what happens to Martin? It's just the overtake there he got done, and there's Will Mason, just a little bit there, Will Mason on the inside. Back to Matt Lucia here, P4, our championship front runner at the moment. We should probably try and head over to Carl Cranswick. We haven't seen much of Carl Cranswick this evening. He had a little incident earlier in the race. Carl currently running in 10th position. He's up 3 places. We've seen some great performances from Carl across the league so far, making up a few places here and there. And actually, the Skip Barber League is where we've seen some great performances from Carl, who managed to gain 21 places in 1 race, I believe it was. So it just shows the caliber of driver that Carl is. Surprised to see him here in 10th. He's all on his own at the minute. He's got nobody around him. So for Carl at the moment, this is going to be a few more laps of just cruising round into Lagos, this beautiful Brazilian circuit that we bring you here with all the angles from trackcams22.com.
Yeah, right on board with Carl a bit. You can get a nice shot of his lovely gold livery and gold helmet. As we approach the centre Estes, we can see how late he can brake with a nice empty tank of fuel. Is he going to go well past the wall? Just before the wall. Is, like we said earlier, you really want to abuse those curbs so you can get a nice long acceleration out through here up to turn 4. I think we've got someone coming out the pits, so hopefully they're a lap down. They'll keep out of his way. I think that's Joe McMullen.
It is Joe McMullen, yes, Chris.
And he's been very kind there, letting Carl go.
Just dropped off a little bit, hasn't he? Just hit the brakes.
You never can be too sure, though. It's always a bit of a worry if you're coming up to a lap car and you're coming to the end of a straight. You don't know, are they going to come off the brakes? Sometimes it's difficult to tell, and it can just cause that little moment of panic. But Carl was nice and calm. Now we can see him go through the stadium. Sorry.
I was going to say, would you want the benefit of the drag? So if you're coming out of the pits, would you want to get behind a fast car like Carl and try and make it, take advantage of that slipstream effect, or is being a little bit heavier on fuel, or just having come into the pits and being maybe just a little bit of tyre temperature drop? Is that slipstream going to affect these ones?
It can do. I think the biggest difference you find with these cars is the change in weight as you come out, because you've got used to that slight drop in weight every single lap, and then suddenly you come out, and maybe that's why it's worth hanging on till the absolute latest moment you can to pit, because you've got less of that weight change to deal with. I think that shows you how well Matt Laubsch has done to have started with such a light car and then move into the middle of the race with such a heavy car and still work his way through all that traffic.
That would explain some of the slower lap times, possibly, I suppose. With him being a little bit slower than some of the front runners earlier on. It looks like Matt is now on par. He's currently running a 1:27.6, so he's actually a whole second faster than Rudy was on the last lap, but it doesn't look like that's going to count for much with the gap that currently exists and the amount of laps that we have left to close that gap. Just going to go over to Will Mason now, because we're coming to Will Mason on the white flag on his last lap of this race. If Will Mason can keep this clean and keep that gap of 2.4 from Gavin Petty, he's in with a chance for the win here, and I think it's a pretty solid chance at this point. So let's carry on and stay on board here with Will Mason as he heads down the Retta Aposta now into turns 4 and 5 to Cedar del Lago, and then that next section as they run up to the stadium section, as you say, Chris, to round out the middle section of the lap. Now, Will has put in a fantastic performance tonight. Didn't start on pole, but he's certainly stated his claim to it and made it his own, with a 3-second gap now near enough to Petty behind. And Petty dropping back, I wonder if he's fuel saving up, but maybe he fueled less than he needed to. But Will Mason, no problems at all. He is absolutely cruising now to his victory as we watch him come into Drumcow, up the final couple of corners and onto that final straight. A really great race at the start here this evening. We got to see some fantastic action from all these guys, especially at the front between Petty. But Mason is the one who comes in tonight with the victory. A fantastic result here from Will Mason. Thank you very much for watching this evening and giving him a big cheer on in the Twitch chat. That's a great result, and we're really happy to see Will Mason there at the front. The first person to win a race since Matt Laubsch after 4 rounds of absolute total dominance. Will Mason is now at the top of the table. Great result from him. Gavin Petty behind in second place, and then Rudy is probably going to come through third by the looks of it. We're just waiting for Rudy now to come across the final lap. Here we go. There he is, and he's made it in third. Great debut appearance from Rudy with a podium finish. I think if Jerome Lamy had been around, maybe that wouldn't have been the case, but unfortunately we did see that disconnect. Laubsch comes in fourth. Brilliant race from him, having seen him come from the very back of the pack. That must have been a tactical move from Laubsch, knowing that he was strong enough to bring himself up into contention in the later stages of the race. We've got Cochrane in fifth, and then Webb coming across the line also. Just reading the Twitch comments, actually, there was a message from Tim Cox, our one of our other commentators on iRacing UK, says, "Go Cochrane on the undercut." He was 1.5 seconds clear of Webb, so great work from Cochrane, a tactical move that solidified a P5 for him this evening. Well, this has been a great round to see out what is nearly the end of the season that we've enjoyed and loved so much. Chris, any thoughts from yourself before we run through the results?
Very good race to watch. We were deprived of a 3-way battle for the lead, but the battle that Mason and Petty gave us was excellent. I think Mason has to be my driver of the day. I know Laubsch has made up the 15 places, but sometimes it's nice to give the winner driver of the day, especially when they've had to fight so hard for it.
Absolutely. Well, as you said, shame it wasn't a three-way battle at the front. But as I say, three's a crowd and two's company. So we've got Will Mason at the front in P1. Fantastic race from him, followed by Gavin Petty. We've then got Rudy Marais in third, followed by Matt Lubscher. Great race from him. As you said, 15 places picked up in the race and 27 points for him. James Cockram comes in fifth, followed by Edmund Webb, Duncan Roberts, and Ben Cullen. Ben was looking incredibly strong and had to come in for another pit stop, which has just set him back a couple of places in this race. We then got Josh Wilson, Carl Cranswick, Marcus Hudson, Patrick Bennett, Martin Devine, Sam Hooper, John Dobson, Clive Davis, Joe Turner McMullen, Mark Cadmore, Nathan Willoughby, Dan Mould, and Jerome Lamy. We are going to be going over to some interviews. No, we're not going to be going over to some interviews this evening, but we are just going to have a little look at the championship table and how that looks right now. So Matt Lubscher still with a commanding, well, I say commanding. I mean, if he's out of the next race for any reason, Will Mason could take it from him, couldn't he, Chris?
Yeah, it's not quite over yet, and as we've seen from today, Will has got a lot of pace in the bag and is an excellent racer. So Matt has got to make sure that he does at least turn up and not get killed on lap one. But as we go through the rest of the standings there, we've got Jerome Lamy and Gavin Petty. That could be another interesting battle in 2 weeks. And then I'm somehow still in fifth. I don't quite understand how I've managed that. And I've got lots of very talented drivers just behind me. James Cockram, Ben Cullen, Stuart Milne, Lee Aberdeen are all right up there. Any one of us could take that coveted fifth place in the standings.
Well, I mean, you must be up there on pure racecraft and skill, Chris. If you're still there without being in the race, so fantastic work from all of the guys on track this evening. We want to say a very big thank you to TrackCams 22 for providing us with all of the angles that you've been able to witness this action from this evening. Now, just going over to a few events, we're going to have the next round of the Skip Barber League running within the community. You'll be able to join that league through the Discord community if you're interested. If you want to get involved in the iRacing UK Discord, head over to www.facebook.com/iRacing UK. You can also find us on Twitter as IRUK_team. We've got some more events. So we've got the GT3 Pro and Pro-Am category race coming up on Sunday. Now, this is going to be brought to you from Spa, and it is a kind of evening dusk race. We recently had the Rookie and the Am category race there. Fantastic coverage that you would have been able to tune into on the channel on Sunday. You can also pick up all of these recorded streams on our YouTube channel as well. A very, very big thank you to anybody that has viewed the stream tonight. The subscriptions are obviously very, very valuable to us, and anybody that chooses to subscribe with that Twitch Prime subscription, we do very much value that. It goes into making more of this quality content and being able to provide you with more and more streams over the coming weeks. Just heading over again to the events, we need to talk about the Race of Champions. We're going to be running the Race of Champions in the IR UK Discord. That's going to be on June the 12th. And the competitors from that Race of Champions come from the winners of leagues and also the winners from our iRacing UK Community League, which is going to have round 6, which is going to be the Porsche Cup at Long Beach this Saturday, the 24th of April. If you want to get involved in that, head over to the community and find the sign-ups page. You're more than welcome to join in with the leagues. I've been Nick Allen, and with me has been Chris Rowlands and Sean Cranley-Swash behind the scenes on cameras and production. We want to give you a very big thank you for joining us this evening for the 5th round of the iRacing Formula 3 League. From me and Chris, it's good night.